Welcome in everybody. My name is Mitch and welcome back to my video on Jamie's channel. And I'm home from Magic Round. It was honestly one of the best weekends of my entire life. It was so much fun meeting everybody and finally getting to meet all the boys like Matty Thompson. I've been friends with these guys for years now and it was my first Magic Round and it's something that I'll never ever forget. Sitting in the crowd live watching Carraz cross for a hat trick was just generational. That's why we play fantasy and it was honestly one of the best feelings and it was a great weekend. And I'm sure I'll touch on that throughout the video. As you would have seen through Jamie's videos, it was pretty full on and he was pretty dusty. And yeah, I think I went a little too hard, a little too early on, and battled my way through at the last day or so. But no, it was really really fun. And yeah, back to some normality now. I've had a pretty big month, so keen to get on and talk footy and talk fantasy and see whatever comes to mind. It was a pretty big week in the fantasy land. A lot of big scores. I walked away with a 1,121, which is a bit of a mammoth score. But when you realize the average of the week was actually like 1,080, I was only about 40, 45 points above the average and the median. So I gained about 1,200 odd ranks, which, I'm on the climb, I'm on the come up. It was a really good round for myself. A few of the guys, lower ownership, did really well for my side in KPP and Carraz. Carraz obviously fairly highly owned, but still 102. I will take that every day of the week. And like I said at the start of the video, watching him live with my best mate, just watching him offload at will, watching him in a tackle raise his arm and throw the offload it was absolutely scenes. It was so awesome to watch live and watching him across for three tries was just I was yeah, I hope everybody watching and everybody, can experience fantasy and how much fun it's supposed to be. I know most of the time it's not, and it's actually quite stressful and actually quite horrible sometimes, but that was just as absolutely unreal. There's a lot of big scores, Rob Toya absolutely carved up and watching that live after trading him out. And yes, I did trade him out this week, which is I'll get into that pretty soon. And watching him do that live was a complete 180, and it was actually quite the opposite. So I'm sure we'll get into that soon. But yeah, 1,121. I'm actually really, really happy with. It's I've seen some big scores and in the top rankings and in all the group chats and all that sort of stuff. But I'm slowly doing my thing and climbing up. Playing Egan for a 79. Poor Matty Thompson traded him out. I know Jamie didn't actually play him, so I managed to do a nice little double loop at the start of the week and the start of the round with Ruben Garrick and the bald eagle himself, Jazz Tavanga, who obviously I brought in the week before. So I just took Savala's score and Katoga's score. In the end, there was actually, I could have moved Carraz up into center and then just took Jenkins, but I thought, no, like a 35, it's safe. It's pretty gross, but it's safe. And with what Jenkins was throwing up in the weeks before, it was pretty safe just to take the 35, have that 85 sitting there to get in the last game of the round when Storm played the Raiders. And as you can see, if you guys watched last week's video, I was pretty high on Jerome Hughes. Silly or not, that's not my decision to make. I kind of get on and talk how I would with my mates and what I would do in my room and kind of my own headspace. And now I'm putting it out to the world. So I was pretty high on Jerome Hughes. I actually didn't end up taking him in the end. I took, as you can see, I've had a little bit of a muck up at the top there with some trades this week, which I'll get into soon. But I took Aaron Clark and King Togia. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. And I traded out Rob Toya and Hubner. I know, it's grim. At the start of the week, I actually initially wanted to trade out Jenkins and Hubner, so I would have kept Toya. But with the trade that I wanted to do, I ended up bringing in Aaron Clark, which, hindsight's a pretty crazy thing. With this Mamazoulis injury, I've already got Aaron Clark and I've got that 50K price rise or so. And yeah, I was going to slide Aaron Clark right into my hooker. I'm really happy. He played 70 odd minutes and, he put the offload away while I was at the game at Suncorp. The Warriors and Cows game was just on and off with it was pouring rain and it was sunny and it was dewy and it didn't really offload or tackle break. It was all pretty much in base. So it was 1 ppm at half time. It was about 40 points in 40 minutes. And yeah, I'm really, really happy with that purchase. And now, he plays round 12. Mamazoulis is injured, and well, we haven't really heard anything yet. This has been recorded on a Monday night, obviously. So at the moment, Mamazoulis is under a bit of an injury cloud with that dislocated shoulder. It doesn't really look good in all the photos and all that sort of stuff. So Aaron Clark will come straight in, and yeah, King Togia was a really good cash down option last week. Just at that basement price, I didn't expect him to score 47, to be honest. That's pretty crazy, but it looks like he's going to hold the spot. Flano and the presser was really, really high on him. And that's good news for us fantasy coaches because he's got a minus break even now. And I'm sure everybody who didn't get him last week will be able to get on him this week. So really, really happy with my squad. Of course, I said I wasn't playing Captain Roulette anymore, and then Terrell May scored the lowest out of everybody. I'm not too worried about that at all. I'm not fussed. It's still a great score, and I know some people were annoyed, but you know, he's averaging 77. That game was super start and stop. Sorry, actually seeing it live as well. It was just, yeah, it was a horrible game of football to watch. We should have left while it was being known to get the Uber back to the hotel faster. But yeah, not too sure who I will captain this week. I've had a bit of a play around with some trades already with the Preston news, which we'll get into pretty soon, and that has some big bearings on what actually happens this week as well. Obviously, with this being filmed on a Monday night, so much can change. Jamie uploads this on a Tuesday morning and for team lists, and Preston's got a hearing tomorrow night, which is actually tonight when this video gets uploaded. So that will have a really big bearing and to see what direction I head in. But taking Purdue's 29, watching him live, that Cowboys left attack, man, they're so dangerous. He is such a pivotal part in their attack. Anytime he got the ball, he just looked like he was so dangerous. Even Nanai and Murray Taulagi. So unfortunately, it didn't really happen this game. Got a bailout try and barely got to 30. So I'm pretty sure I will be trading him this week. He's done his dash. He's made me a lot of money. His break even has kind of, evened out a little bit, still mid 30s, which he can hit this week against the Panthers. But I think I'm looking to upgrade to one of the big dog centers in a Lucas, Herbie, a Bofa Moore, maybe KL Ero, which is a really interesting shout. So I've had a little bit of a play around there, which we'll get into pretty soon. And, Ponga is back. I held the faith. I know most people or a lot of people sold, which probably the right decision in the end. I was so stoked with watching Ponga play. He looked really well. There was, news throughout the week that was under an injury cloud with the ribs, and he didn't look to hamper him too much. He come off with about 5 to go, just bit of a nothing game. They were already pumping south, so yeah, his break even will even out a little bit now. The good score was there, which I'm really, really happy with. He goes into the Titans this week, and I'm hoping for another big game. Titans are pretty leaky. However, they played in round 3, and that's when his slide kind of started with that mid 20 odd score. So yeah, Drinkwater doing his thing. He looks so good, Drinky at the back. I'm really, really happy. I picked him up a few weeks ago at 630 odd K. He's already made a quick 70K with a break even in the early 30s. Can you still buy him? I think so. Bit like Teddy, they've had some big scores back to back weeks, so their break even's kind of jumped up a little bit. He's going to be a really good prime target for a lot of people to jump on after their round 12 bye, because then you get him all the way through to besides the last game of the season. So he's killing it. I'm loving watching Drinky play. He's kind of what I wish Ponga was doing. Drinky had like 270 kick meters last game, which is like 8 or 9 points. So really helping that base. Cleary goes nuclear against my Broncos. That was definitely something. Sitting in the crowd with all the Bronco supporters in the pouring rain, I wouldn't let it. I wasn't going to let it ruin my weekend. So, but no, Cleary went gangbusters when everybody took the captaincy off him. And poor Isaiah Yo with a 50. He's gone back to back pretty dud scores. And the idea of selling him next week is still something that's on my mind to fit into my buy planning and filling my round 12 13 players, and that's something that I'm really considering with my trades this week. It just sucks that now his break even's like 70 odd, 73 give or take. So he's probably going to still lose some money. So trading him next week, you're kind of selling him at his lowest. Maybe he can go a little bit lower, but if he goes another 50, he's going to lose another 20 to 25K. So selling him at 780 seems pretty low, but we'll see how the week plays out. I was looking really, really good heading into this week before the Preston news, and yeah, he goes on the judiciary tonight, and we'll see if I think if he gets off, he only misses 1 week, or whatever it is. I'm not too sure. Don't quote me on that. And then which he would probably be a hold. But if he fails, it's going to be like 3 or 4 weeks. I think they have a buy in there as well. So, in round 13, I believe. Well, again, don't quote me. I don't have the numbers or anything. I'm just kind of talking off the brain in front of the camera. So. Yeah, which means he would be a sell. He would not be a hold. You can't hold that much money for that long, even though he has an immaculate buy. scheduling and for 15 and 18 and all that sort of stuff. You'd have to sell. And that's kind of what I'm doing heading into TLT in the judiciary early days. If the news comes out that he gets off for the 1 week, then I'll reverse my thoughts and I'll kind of go into it a little in depth in a moment here. I don't have Matty T here with me to talk back and forth, so it's kind of me off the top of my head and see where we end up, eh? But yeah, that's kind of how I went this week. There was lots of big scores. I'm sure you scored really big yourself. Um, Really exciting when you have big weeks like this. I thought I was killing it till I saw everyone, have the exact same score as me. And I was like, oh, that makes sense. Everybody either had like a Rob Toya, a Jacob Carraz. Fletcher Sharp went like, 78 odd or so, which is only, realistically 20 points different from Carraz. So it doesn't really make too much of a difference in the end. It's kind of, did you take Savala's Lube? Did you take a Katoga? Did you have Dylan Lucas? This sort of thing. I had a Purdue to majority of people's Dylan Lucas slash Bo Fermor, which I will be fixing up this week, which is really, really exciting. So yeah, what I'll kind of get into is what I'm thinking heading into this week. Again, so much can change, and that's the joys of doing this video. And at this time slot, I was really high on Jerome Hughes last week. I still am. I had a lot of fun watching him live. He's only scored like 46 or something, which isn't great. So probably a good thing I didn't jump on. But yeah, just the thought process there. It's probably not a smart idea, but I don't jump on the videos to be smart and give you guys the analytical advice and the do's and don'ts. I kind of get on and just tell you what I'm going to do, which yeah, a bit of fun. I've got a lot of good feedback from it too. So yeah, that's really how we're going to do it. So this is what I've had a little play around with already. So I want to do a bit of a three trader, triple trade, have a bit of fun. I love to trade. Triple trading is also very, very fun. And as you can see, my side has changed a little bit. And I've got a couple of rogue picks. Again, I love being rogue. I love being different. I'm trying to chase upside. I'm trying to chase some ranks, sitting about 4,300. My team value is a lot less, or not a lot less, but it's about 300K less than a lot of the top teams and sort of that sort of stuff. So that's kind of where I'm putting the benchmark at. So to do that, I'm trying to chase some upside. And I've landed on a few things. The thing that I'm definitely doing this week, whether or not Jacob Preston gets 1 week and I'll hold, whatever happens there, if Preston gets off, then I'll hold him, definitely. But I am bringing in Dylan Lucas. So I am bringing in Dylan Lucas. I had the choice between all the gun centers, Herbie. The four options were Dylan Lucas, Herbie Farmworth, Bo Fermor, and KL Ero. I think Kale Ero would be the fun pick. They're all quite fun, and I think he's the rogue pick. He's the lowest ownership, and that's something that I might consider. I didn't own Dylan Lucas at the start of the season, and I was death riding him for the first 2 rounds before he'd done his hamstring. And Jamie's right when he says he's just an easy watch. One of my favorite players to watch in fantasy, probably my favorite player actually, is Cam McInnes. I've spoke about it a few times here. But obviously last year when I did really, really well, I held him the whole season and I just loved watching him play. He's such a boring player, meat and potatoes or meat and three veg. I think Austin says from the fantasy amateurs, which I really like that quote. He just makes his tackles. Sometimes he can have some attacking stats, but you're not really watching him play. You're watching the minutes. And if Cam McInnes is playing 55 minutes, then you're going to get about a 55 to 60 score. And sometimes he can have those really big games where he plays 65, 70 odd and he'll go nuclear. And then he'll have those games where he gives you a random 46, which you take those. And I love watching him play. And he's someone that I really am considering this week or next week. I think it would be next week for Isaiah Yo, and that would field my 13 if I go this route. And he also has the buy in round 13, which I've already got enough mids to cover him then. So that buy is not really that important to me. Get it out of the way in a round that's not that important. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm thinking with Dylan Lucas. Herbie Farmworth is very fun to watch as well. He's got bailed out 2 weeks in a row with tries, but the fun aspect of owning him would be incredibly. It would be so excited to watch him if you had a Dolphins game on the same day. Dylan Lucas is such an easy watch. He'll make 45 tackles, have 130 run meters. There's your base for a center. So I'm gonna pay up the premium for him. I think I'm locking him in no matter what happens this week. As you can see, I've got another night here, and I've had KPP for a while too, and that's been really good. I've really enjoyed watching him play. bit of fun. I like he's really upped his base stats as well. He had a line break in this game while he was hanging out in the wing, but he's been making, 40 odd tackles, running 120 meters. And then he's got the mindset to offload. He hasn't really had any offloads this week or last week, but we've seen a few weeks ago, he went nuclear with 10 minutes to go. And I'm kind of chasing that upside with him, 1.7% owned. And that number would be pretty high in top teams. I'm not too sure. I don't have it up on me, and not really going to do that. I'm not really worried about that sort of stuff, but he's really fun to watch as well. So rolling with both Newcastle edges, they have really friendly buy scheduling as well, and that's another round 12 player that I can add. And yeah, keep probably the best center. I think I'd rather Dylan Lucas than Herbie in that center spot. Both Fermor, I'm quietly confident he's going to play Origin. My personal opinion. Um, I'm a Queensland fan, as you know. I'm a Broncos fan, die hard. I think Bo Fermor fits in that Queensland side, personally. And Kale Iro is another great shout. Again, I'm not recommending at all. I'm not recommending any of these guys. It's not really the purpose that I serve, but just for my team, or I what kind of want to do and where I want to have fun with it, sort of thing. So I think I'm going to lock Dylan Lucas in, and that leaves me in two positions. So before I touch on anything else, I'll just kind of go through how I'm kind of making that happen if this was the trajectory that I'm going through. Obviously, Peter Mamazoulis, we don't know the news yet. Maybe by the time this video goes live or you guys are watching, we'll know more of detail of what's going on. But it looks like he's, yeah, dislocated his shoulder or whatever the injury is. I'm not too sure. But he looks like a sell. This might be a scenario where we take our money and run. I've got Aaron Clark. I've also got the bald eagle Jazz Tavanga, which is really fun. So now I'm rolling in hookers in fantasy, not IRL. But yeah, I think I'm just going to take my money and run. And Jackson Purdue, I've owned since the start. I had so much fun owning him. When I didn't play him, he went 60 and 70. When I did play him, he went 30 and 35. So that's awesome. Thanks, Jackson. But I'm going to take my nearly 300 odd K and run to the bank. And yeah, that's the guys I'm probably going to trade. Obviously, with the Preston news, if it comes back as like he's fine 1 week, then I'll fix this up and I'll go to Lucas with these two probably. It'll probably be Dylan Lucas and then like a Selwyn Cobbo or something fun, Hamish Stewart from the Dragons or whatever that is. I've had a little bit of a play around, but I've kind of settled on this for now and not too sure if Preston will get off. I hope he does because I've loved owning him. He's like the Carraz. I love watching the Dogs games, owning Carraz and Preston, like many of you. But yeah, I do like the way this layout looks, and I'll go into detail on why. So I might start off with Britton Nickera first as well. It's a bit of a rogue pick. He's only averaging 44, and you may look at that as a bit gross. You may look at that as he is not a keeper, but I think he is. Now, I've played fantasy for a long time, like 6 years, obviously, but every year, Britton Nickera is like a 50 average guy. It's not a 55, it's not a 52, it's not a 53. It's like a 50 average guy. And last year I picked him up in round seven for 625K. And obviously he starts the season at 700K every year because he's a 50 average. And he always loses lots of money at the start of the season. Every year. It's like the round one. You don't start with gun wing fullbacks because they always drop in value. I don't start with Ponga next year, remind me. But Britton Nickera always drops money. He'll get suspended early. He'll get sin bin. It's already happened this year, I'm pretty sure. And this year I'm thinking it's no different. Obviously I've got this set out, layout, sorry, with the trades. I'm getting Dylan Lucas and I'm kind of filling in the gap. And I'm looking at the options. I can get my man Jerome Hughes, which is really exciting. So I can get him if I wanted to. He's very cheap. Turbo is definitely another option. But again, he's got a high break even. I actually personally don't know if he plays Origin. Again, like I've got my opinions and thoughts about what I think the Origin teams will look like. And I don't think Turbo will play Origin. I think he should. Similar to Jacob Carraz, I personally don't think Carraz will play Origin. I think he should, but I'm putting my mindset in Laurie Daly. What will Laurie Daly pick? And I don't think Laurie Daly will pick Carraz or Turbo. I think Latrell fills that left center spot. Critter will play right center. I think it'll be To'o and Lomax on the wings, personally. So that's my opinion. Don't come for me. Um, so Turbo is an option with the 60 break even. I think if he doesn't make Origin, he's probably a roaring buy in around 12. Obviously, if he does make Origin, then yeah, Manly's buy scheduling is horrible for Origin players. Similar to why I'm avoiding Olakawatu, because I can actually get him for Leo Thompson, who I will dive into very soon. That's a pretty exciting pick. I think I'm not too decided yet. But yeah, Britton Nikora, I'm just looking at that as he's a depreciating asset, as Brenton from Talking League would call it on a Monday morning. And shout out to Brenton too. I met him up at Magic Round. He's such an awesome bloke. We spoke about football and fantasy for like 20 minutes, and then we walked over to the stadium together. So yeah, he's an awesome bloke. He gave me a lot of good feedback as well. So I had a great time talking to him. And yeah, so I'm going to use the depreciating asset as as a bit of an example here. I think Nikora again will average like 49 to 50. I'm not expecting him to average 55. That's not why I'm buying him. And I'm looking at this price similar to Jerome Hughes. He fits the buy scheduling really well. Plays 12. I think from memory they play 15 with the 13 buys. That's really friendly for my team. If I was to trade Preston out, I'm getting rid of an edge. I plan to use Lucas at the centers, so Nikora fits that gap. Has the around 13 buy, which is very friendly for my side. So I'm not really missing out on him there. And I just think there's going to be games where he goes nuclear. I picked him up this time last year for 50K more, and yeah, held him all year. I'm going to get some 38s. I'm going to get some 70s. I'm going to get some 35s, and I'm going to get some 65s. That's what Britton Nikora is. He's going to score lots of tries. He actually has a point 0.7 try scoring rate this year, which is really, really high. So it is a little concerning. He's only averaging 44, but I'm going to take the punt, I think. I like the low ownership. I'm not suggesting you guys do it at all. Don't do that. I'm not saying go buy Britton Nikora, just like I wasn't saying go buy Jerome Hughes. This is just me spitballing. I don't have a script or anything. I'm just kind of talking, and that's where my head's at right now. 7 o'clock on a Monday afternoon. This could all change in a couple of hours. So yeah, I like Nikora. He just fits the mold and the cash. I haven't had much cash to play with. I'm obviously using Preston's 780 odd, Mamazulis, and then Purdue. So I'm using like, I've got a cheapie I started with, two cheapies I started with, and then a gun. Mamazulis probably was looking towards a keeper, and we'll see what the injury is. Maybe if it's 2 weeks, maybe I hold. I'm not sure. His buy scheduling is very friendly as well. Like he plays 15 and 18, so it goes really well with Aaron Clark if we hold that long. And Purdue, he's done his dash. I can get Lucas. I don't really need him anymore. I've got Lucas, Garrick, and Carraz. So I've got the three centers. I don't have a Herbie, but I don't need a Herbie. I got Drinky. I'm really happy with. I've got Ponga there. I've got Katoga who survives another week. I'm probably going to loop him this week. Although I'm kind of quietly hoping Jenkins is named at center, and then maybe I might try to loop him instead. I'm not too sure. We'll see how that works. But yeah, Britton Nikora, I really like for my side. Still open to suggestions, and I'll have another thorough play around, and we'll check TLT, all the good stuff. And that comes to Leo Thompson, who I said Nikora fits the gap, but I think Leo Thompson kind of fits the gap. Obviously, as you can see, I've got 8K remaining with these trades. And if I'm looking at the guys I'm getting in, Dylan Lucas, a keeper, elite keeper in the position. Britton Nikora. Now I'm going to be calling him a keeper, a depreciating asset, undervalued. I know he's a 50 guy in the past. Nothing's really changed. It's the same Nikora and the same Shark side. Playing next to Hines, he's going to score tries, blah, 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 blah. We know what he is. I'm going to call him a keeper. You don't have to. You can call me a fool. That's all right. I probably am. And I'm looking at Leo Thompson, and it's a bit of a road pick. Again, very low ownership, very up my alley, 2% owned. Don't know a lot of people with him. I've seen a couple of teams, which, fair enough. And I'm just like, he's a mid in a really tough position for round 12. Place 15 as well. Again, in another really tricky position. And I just like what I've seen. I had a little bit of a look at his stats, and again, I don't really preach his stats or anything, but he's had a bit of an offload in his last 3 or 4 games. He had, I think, 4 offloads on the weekend, two to hand, two on the ground. And that's not really, it's definitely an outlier. He's not an offloader. He's never really been that. But if I can take the punt and have him, try to introduce an offload to his game, it's just going to really help with his floor. Newcastle do have some troops coming back, but even though he is off to the Dogs next year, it's quite clear he is still their pack leader. He's still their best middle. At Newcastle, they're in shambles right now. I know they pump South. They're probably going to pump the Titans, but they're in shambles, and he probably is their best middle. He's young. He's their alpha male, even though he is leaving, obviously. So I'm still a little undecided on that. I don't know. I've asked a few of the guys, just what they think, just thoughts around it because it's still something I'm trying to think about. I don't really want to pick up subpar buy round options. But if I can pick him up, he just averages 50. It's not really a value pick. It's more about getting his scores over the next few weeks. I can leave him, you know, if he's averaging 50, he's a keeper. He's not an elite keeper. He's not going to go average 55 plus, but I'm not buying him at that price. Kind of buying him for a role. And, obviously with my team value and that sort of stuff. I have to try to target these guys who aren't, I can't fill a bench with your Joe Tarpanese, your Jaden Campbell's when he comes back and have all these guys. I feel like I'm kind of shopping in the basket below and trying to target some value, but also some points and just get a good mixture of both. And all that sort of stuff aside, I do love chasing a guy who is really low ownership. It definitely has its cons, but it can also have its pros. I find it more fun that way. It's kind of why I was like, oh, Kale Ero, but I don't want to try to outthink the room. I could just get Dylan Lucas, lock in the best scorer. So this position is a little, I could do a few things. Obviously with the 8K, can go up to like 639, which is really grim. Do I want to buy Luke Metcalf back? No, but exactly. So, it's your Blake Brayley's, this sort of stuff. So I'm looking at that list. Um, Another option was Olakawatu instead, um, which I still don't mind. But again, I don't know if Olakawatu plays Origin. I'm not sure. Me personally, I don't think he will, but that's just me. Again, like I'm not picking the side, so I think he's a fine option. But yeah, so it's just this basket of what do I do this week, and yeah, I'm still undecided. I put this together. I'm like, all right, let's jump on and see what we can come up with. I do like the Dylan Lucas. I will be picking up Dylan Lucas, and the more I talk about Britton Nikora, I like it even more. So we'll see where I actually end up, and I think this makes my team a lot stronger as well. Like your Purdue and Mamazoulis out, even though Mamo was killing it. Dylan Lucas, Nikora, Leo Thompson, all guys who are 50 plus guys in my opinion. Again, Nikora's average obviously is a bit low, but it is what it is. And it really sets me up quite nicely for round 12 as well. Obviously, round 10 now, still a few weeks away. But with these trades, I've traded pretty heavy. I'm pretty jealous of everyone sitting with 25 or 24, 23 trades, but that's boring. Trading's pretty fun, and that's why we play the game, right? No. So yeah, it leaves me with 12 for next week with this current lot of players. Obviously, I'm not counting Ponga, and then the Origin guys I'm not counting. So this is just straight, round 12 players. And what's on my mind for next week is Isaiah Yo out to Cam McInnes. I think we'll see. I really like Cam. I really like watching him, and I just want to own him again. So yeah, I think that's what I might do next week. I need another mid, so it's the only position that I need with obviously Aaron Clark, and I've got Jazz Tavanga in there holding it down. So can't wait for him to score a try in round 12, because that's what I'm going to need from him. But yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at for that. I'm kind of setting up a few rounds in advance. The idea is to use one trade next week. So much can happen, right? Like I didn't actually want to trade while I was in the Magic round stands. I was like, I'm not even going to trade next week, and here I am throwing three away. That's how fast fantasy can change. A lot of people have a lot of Roosters plays out. Corey Horsburgh, did he get a cat one? Did he not get a cat one? He was drinking. I think he was on the beers after the game, so it didn't look too bad. When it happened, it definitely was knocked out. Is he out? We don't know. Preston news going on tomorrow night or tonight for when we watch this video. But we actually don't know. There's a lot of injuries, and I've seen some pretty ravaged sides already. So I'm not. I only had the one Rooster heading into this round. Obviously trading out Rob Toy last week, which sucks. So we'll be doing a loop with like a Katoga, one of these guys. Again, I really quietly hope Jenkins is named in the centers, because then I think I might try to play him against the Cowboys. Jenkins is a bit of a jet when he plays that left center role. So yeah, it's going to be a really challenging week for a lot of people. Not me, I don't think, obviously, because my side's looking all right, and I'm hoping to make some ranks. And that's kind of my setup. I don't like to plan too far in advance for these buy rounds, and I kind of just play it by ear, which I'm kind of not doing this year. I am planning a few rounds ahead. I don't normally do this really, even though I haven't really done too much of it. But that's the plan next week. Yowie to like a Cam McInnes, AFB, one of these guys. I'm not too sure. Maybe just Cam, because I love to watch him and I've been spruiking him, and yeah, I love just owning him and watching him play really. So that would give me 13. And yeah, it's not a great 13. I don't think I'd be playing Jenkins and no Teddy, and Raz goes to Origin, then well, maybe I will buy Teddy if he doesn't, and all the things that's to come. Don't even know what I'm gonna have for breakfast tomorrow, let alone what I'm gonna do next week in fantasy. So yeah, that's probably where we'll wrap it up. I don't know how long I've talked for or what I've rambled on about. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. Like I said, I had so much fun at Magic Round, and maybe I'll have some conversations or some comments for you guys in the comment section about it. I had so much fun getting on the beers and seeing everyone and meeting everyone, and the private group hangout was really fun and so good to meet Matty Thompson and all the other boys. I've spent a lot of time talking to these guys over the last few years, and I'm getting more and more a part of the community and putting my name out there a lot more, and I'm having a lot of fun with it. It was really good to hear all the positive feedback and especially doing something that I love. I love talking football. I love fantasy. It's a really big part of my life, as whether or not that's sad or not, but I love it. I wouldn't have it any other way, and I'm really happy with all the comments I've been receiving too. It makes me feel really nice, and yeah, I'm excited to see where it can take me and what happens next. I'm very privileged to have Jamie give me this opportunity to talk about what I love, and yeah, I hope you guys do as well. I know I'm not doing so crash hot this year, and maybe that's why because I'm jumping on and talking. But no, I've had so much fun doing it, and yeah, I'll see you guys next week. Maybe I'll have Matty Thompson back on. I do love getting him on. Having my best mate talk footy. It's a lot of fun, and yeah, it's probably where I'll end it. Thanks, guys. Have a good week.